Cadet Evan adjusted the strap of his helmet, feeling the slight weight press against his forehead. The training arena stretched out before him, a wide metallic floor surrounded by tall observation towers. Lights gleamed along the walls, reflecting off the polished metal, and a low hum of energy pulsed through the air. Evan's chest tightened slightly. He had trained for months, pushing himself past exhaustion, yet nothing had prepared him for this moment. Today he would face General Talon. The alien general moved into the arena with a presence that seemed to make the air itself heavier. Talon was enormous, standing well over 7 feet tall, his 4 arms coiled and ready. His skin glimmered in shades of dark green and silver, and his sharp eyes, black and glinting, scanned the humans before him like a predator sizing up its prey. Every step he took made a low vibration in the floor, and his breathing, if it could be called that, sounded like a wind through metal tubes. The other cadets shifted nervously, their shoulders tightening. They whispered to one another in hurried tones, words lost on Evan as he focused on the figure before him. He could see the impatience in Talon's movements, the twitching of his extra limbs, the subtle flecks of muscle beneath alien skin. There was no kindness in Talon's gaze, only power and the expectation of obedience. "Step aside, human," Talon barked, his voice like a grinding stone rolling over metal. It echoed off the walls of the arena. "You do not belong here." Evan's hands tightened on his belt, and he shook his head slightly. He had been taught to respect authority, yes, but he had also been taught that fear should never guide action. His voice did not tremble when he spoke. "I belong here," he said simply. "I earned this place like anyone else." For a moment, silence fell over the arena. The cadets froze, their eyes wide. Talon's 4 arms twitched rapidly, a warning, but Evan did not flinch. He planted his feet firmly on the ground and met the general's gaze head-on. Even in the face of overwhelming size and strength, he did not move back. A low growl rumbled in Talon's throat. The general stepped closer, and the metallic floor seemed to hum under the weight of his movement. His gaze narrowed, studying Evan with a kind of cold curiosity. Then, with a sudden motion that made the cadets gasp, Talon struck. One of his massive arms shot forward and slammed into Evan's chest with incredible force. The impact knocked the air from Evan's lungs and his body jolted backward. Pain flared across his chest, sharp and burning, but he did not fall. He staggered, yes, but only barely, and his feet found the ground again almost instinctively. Every cadet in the arena held their breath, expecting the human to collapse or cry out. But Evan's expression did not waver. He blinked once, then stood taller, straightening his shoulders as if the strike had done nothing. Evan's eyes burned with quiet defiance, a fire that the other cadets could feel from across the arena. The whispers grew, spreading like wildfire. "Did you see that?" one cadet murmured. "He didn't even fall." "How is he still standing?" another asked, voice trembling. "That was General Talon," a third muttered, fear in their tone. They had seen the power of aliens before, the might of generals like Talon, but never had they witnessed a human take a strike and remain standing. Evan's mind raced, though his face remained calm. He could feel the sting of the blow in his chest, the ache in his ribs, the sharp warmth spreading under his skin. Yet he focused on steady breathing, on keeping his mind clear. He remembered the lessons from the instructors, the hours spent in the training simulators, the nights he had spent running drills until his muscles screamed. Every movement he had learned, every tactic he had practiced, now mattered more than ever. Talon, on the other hand, seemed momentarily taken aback. He had struck Evan with full force, expecting a human to crumble, to plead, to beg. But this human, stood tall, unwavering. Talon's eyes narrowed, and the twitching of his extra arms slowed. For the first time he saw a spark in a human that he had not anticipated. "You are persistent," Talon said, his voice low and dangerous, more like a growl than a sentence. He took another step closer, and the floor seemed to vibrate under his weight. "Do you not understand who you face?" Evan did not answer immediately. He inhaled, feeling the tightness in his chest loosen slightly. "I do," he said finally in a calm voice. "And I still stand." A tense silence followed. Even the hum of the arena seemed quieter, as if the energy itself had paused to watch. The other cadets stared, some in awe, some in disbelief. They had all trained for this day, but no one had expected it to unfold this way. A human defying a general, one of the most feared beings in the galaxy, was something they had only heard of in stories, never seen with their own eyes. Talon's 4 arms flexed again, the motion slow, deliberate. His gaze bore into Evan's, studying the human as if trying to decipher a riddle. "Your courage is unusual," he said, more to himself than to Evan. Most humans would be crushed by now. Evan swallowed, feeling a small trickle of blood from the impact slide down his side. He ignored it, focusing instead on his stance, on the clarity of his mind. He had been trained to remain calm under pressure, to act with precision even when faced with overwhelming force. Every second he remained upright was a message, to the general, to the cadets, and to himself, that humans were not so easily broken. "Your defiance is noted," Talon said finally, the words sharp but tinged with something unfamiliar, respect perhaps. "But standing alone will not save you." Evan's lips pressed into a thin line. "I don't stand alone," he said. "I stand for everyone who believes in human strength." The words seemed to echo in the arena, carried by the low hum of the energy lights. Even some of Talon's aides, watching from above, shifted uncomfortably. There was a power in human resilience, a stubbornness that even the most disciplined alien warriors rarely encountered. For a few moments, neither moved. Evan's chest rose and fell steadily, his eyes locked on Talon's as if to challenge the alien to strike again. Talon, massive and terrifying, took a step back, almost reconsidering his next move. His pride as a general was immense, yet here was a human cadet who refused to show fear, who refused to falter under the weight of alien might. The tension in the arena was palpable. Whispers among the cadets turned into murmurs of admiration. Even those who had doubted human capabilities felt a spark of hope. One could almost see the air crackle with the unspoken realization. Maybe humans were more than they appeared. Talon's breathing grew slower, measured. He tilted his head, studying Evan with those sharp black eyes. The general had struck many opponents in his life, and none had met the blow with such calm defiance. None had made him pause. Evan's steady presence was like a mirror, reflecting Talon's own expectations back at him, showing the general that human courage was not something to underestimate. Evan, meanwhile, allowed himself a brief moment of pride, though he did not let it show. He could feel the warmth spreading in his chest, the pain lingering, but it fueled him rather than weakening him. He had faced the strike, had endured it, and had shown that strength did not always come from size or raw power. Evan took a deep breath, feeling the sting in his chest fade slightly as adrenaline surged through him. The trickle of blood on his lip reminded him that he had just faced something far stronger than himself, yet he refused to let it show. Around him, the other cadets were frozen, their eyes wide, mouths slightly open, watching with a mixture of fear, awe, and disbelief. No one had expected a human to withstand the force of General Talon, let alone continue without complaint. The training arena seemed to hum with tension. Metal panels along the floor vibrated faintly under Talon's massive feet, and the observation towers above cast long shadows over the cadets. Evan's helmet, though slightly dented from the strike, still fit snugly. He adjusted it quickly, taking care not to make the action seem nervous or hurried. Every movement he made was deliberate, calculated, controlled. He glanced at Talon, who was now standing a few steps away, watching him with narrowed eyes. The alien's forearms flexed and twitched, signaling impatience, confusion, and something Evan could not yet identify. There was a shift in Talon's presence, subtle but unmistakable. His stance was less aggressive, more cautious, as though he were reconsidering his own actions. Evan began the exercise again, his mind clear, his body moving with precision. Each step, each motion was purposeful. He leapt, dodged, and rolled across the metallic floor, keeping his balance perfectly despite the lingering pain from the strike. Every maneuver was executed with speed and accuracy that spoke of countless hours of training, of nights spent running drills until his muscles ached and his mind screamed for rest. The other cadets watched in silence, unable to tear their eyes away. Some whispered to each other, though Evan could not hear their words over the pounding of his own heartbeat. "He's incredible," one muttered. "I've never seen a human move like that," said another. The fear that had gripped them moments ago was giving way to admiration. They had expected weakness. Instead, they were witnessing skill, courage, and determination. Talon's gaze remained fixed on Evan. The alien general's head tilted slightly as he studied the human's movements. He had fought countless opponents, faced enemies that spanned entire star systems, yet he had never seen anyone respond like this. Most beings, when struck with his strength, crumbled immediately. Most pleaded, cried, or retaliated without thought. Evan did none of these things. He absorbed the blow and moved with even greater precision, as if the strike had sharpened his focus rather than diminished his strength. A low hum of disbelief passed through Talon's throat. His forearms twitched again, this time more subtly, like a predator trying to decide if its prey was dangerous or foolish. The alien's mind raced. How could a human endure such force without faltering? How could one so small, so fragile-looking, demonstrate this kind of composure? Evan didn't speak. He didn't need to. His actions were louder than words, a statement that he would not be intimidated, that humans were not weak, that humans could face the unimaginable without fear. Every step he took, every motion he executed, reinforced the truth that courage was not measured by size or strength alone, but by the determination to stand and continue when others would fall. As the exercise continued, Evan found himself moving faster than usual. His muscles, responding instinctively, flowed from one motion to the next. He dodged imaginary attacks, countered with precise strikes, and balanced on the edge of control and speed. It was almost like dancing, yet it was deadly serious. He could feel the ache in his ribs, the warmth of blood from the earlier strike, but he ignored it, focusing entirely on the rhythm of movement and the clarity of his mind. The observation towers above were filled with instructors and senior cadets, and even they began to murmur among themselves. "Look at his reflexes," one said. "He's anticipating every move as if he's reading the attack before it happens," another whispered. It was true. Evan's awareness was heightened, his instincts sharp, as if the strike had unlocked something inside him rather than weakening him. Talon's confusion deepened. He had expected a broken human, a cadet cowering in fear, maybe even one who would retaliate recklessly. But Evan was none of those things. The human moved with calm precision, reacting to each challenge with skill that rivaled the best soldiers Talon had ever trained or fought against. It was as if the human's body and mind had been forged to respond to extreme pressure, to turn pain and danger into clarity and strength. The arena seemed to pulse with energy, and Evan felt a strange awareness of the space around him. Every echo, every vibration, every glint of light from the metallic walls became a part of his perception. He moved through the space with confidence not because he was fearless, but because he trusted himself. Each motion was deliberate, each decision measured. Even when fatigue threatened to creep in, he pushed past it, drawing on reserves he hadn't known he possessed. Talon meanwhile began to circle him slowly, studying his every move. The alien general's massive limbs flexed as if ready to strike at any moment, yet he held back. There was something almost hypnotic in the human's calmness, something that drew Talon's attention like a magnet. The general could not understand it fully, could not predict it, and that uncertainty unsettled him. Evan noticed the alien's gaze, though he did not let it distract him. He knew Talon was powerful, more powerful than any human he had ever faced, and he respected that strength. But he also knew something else. Courage and calmness could counter brute force. He had trained for this not just physically but mentally. He had prepared to face being stronger, faster, and larger than himself. And now, in the very moment of truth, that preparation showed. He completed a particularly difficult sequence of movements, spinning and landing in perfect balance. The cadets around the arena gasped, some stepping back involuntarily. Evan could see the surprise on their faces, the growing respect. He didn't look at them. His focus remained on the task, on the flow of movement, on maintaining calm under pressure. Each step he took, each roll and strike he executed, told a story of determination and resilience. Talon finally spoke, his voice low but carrying across the arena. "Remarkable," he said. "You continued despite everything. You are unlike any human I have faced." His words were grudgingly respectful, though his pride as a general made it clear he was still wary. The alien's eyes flickered with a strange emotion, something Evan could not name but could sense. A mix of disbelief, curiosity, and perhaps the beginnings of respect. The War Council chamber on Talon's flagship was vast, its walls lined with glowing panels that displayed star maps, tactical simulations, and reports from distant planets. The room smelled faintly of metal and ozone, a scent that seemed to hum with authority and power. Talon's advisors, a collection of older, scarred aliens with sharp eyes and multiple limbs, whispered quietly among themselves. Their voices were low, filled with skepticism and doubt. They had seen humans before, and in every encounter the pattern had been the same. Fragile, weak, easy to break under pressure. "They cannot survive the harsh conditions of a real battlefield," one advisor said, flexing a clawed hand as he spoke. "Their species is soft. They panic, they fall, they fail." Another advisor nodded, her long eyes narrowing. "They have courage in small doses perhaps, but that is not enough. They are predictable, impulsive, and ultimately, fragile." Talon did not reply. He remained standing in the center of the chamber, his massive frame filling the space with an almost oppressive presence. His forearms rested at his sides, each one twitching slightly, a sign of the unrest he felt within himself. On the main display panel, A holographic replay of the training arena flickered to life, showing the sequence of Evan's exercise in slow motion. Every step, every dodge, every precise movement was highlighted and magnified. Talon's eyes, black and glimmering, followed the human cadet with intense focus. The replay showed the strike, the recoil, and the immediate recovery. It captured Evan's steady breath, the calm expression on his face, and the perfection of his subsequent maneuvers. To any other observer it was just a performance of skill. But to Talon it was more than that. "There's something in this one," Talon muttered almost to himself, his voice low and gravelly. "A strength I have not seen before." The advisors froze at the sound of their general speaking, his words not aimed at them but carrying a weight they could feel. Talon did not often speak of his feelings, and certainly not in the presence of humans, or even of his closest advisors. Yet here he was, acknowledging, almost reluctantly, that there was a quality in this human that defied his expectations. Evan's quiet determination had left a mark on Talon, an unfamiliar sense of respect, tinged with curiosity. The general had faced countless warriors from different planets, some stronger, some faster, some with powers that defied human comprehension. None of them had moved with the same precision under extreme pressure. None had remained calm when struck by overwhelming force. And none had endured without complaint, without anger, without fear. Talon's gaze softened slightly as he watched the replay. He could see the way Evan's muscles flexed, the way his eyes remained focused, the way his mind seemed perfectly aligned with his body. There was no hesitation, no faltering. Every movement was deliberate, every step calculated, every breath controlled. It was not just physical skill, it was mental strength, clarity, and unshakable focus. The advisors whispered again, noticing the change in their general's expression. "General, the human is remarkable," one said, trying to sound cautious. "Perhaps it is a fluke. One cadet may show promise, but the species as a whole." Talon's head shook slowly, his eyes still locked on the replay. "No," he said, his voice firm, cutting through the murmurs of the council. "It is not a fluke. There is a fire here that I have not encountered before in any human. This cadet, possesses something rare." The council fell silent, unsure how to respond. They had trained for decades in military strategy, combat tactics, and alien psychology, yet none of their knowledge prepared them for this moment. Talon was not just impressed, he was unsettled. There was an unfamiliar energy radiating from the human, a stubbornness and courage that refused to bend to intimidation or fear. Talon took a step closer to the holographic display, his massive claws brushing against the edge of the console. He watched Evan execute another series of movements on the replay, a roll to avoid an attack, a precise strike aimed at an imaginary opponent, a sudden leap that landed him perfectly balanced. Every detail was perfect. Every movement communicated confidence, control, and a refusal to be broken. How can one so small, so fragile-looking, carry such strength? Talon muttered to himself. His advisors exchanged nervous glances. They had expected the general to dismiss the human, perhaps even laugh at the cadet's audacity. Instead, Talon's tone was thoughtful, calculating, respectful. The general's mind raced. He recalled the strike he had delivered in the arena, the full force of his arm crashing into Evan's chest, and the human had barely flinched. Not only that, but he had immediately continued with the exercise, moving with even greater precision. Most beings would have faltered, some would have shouted in pain, others would have hesitated. Evan had done none of these things. He had endured. He had adapted. He had succeeded. Talon's forearms flexed and relaxed in rhythm with his thoughts. He had been a general for decades, commanding thousands of soldiers, facing enemies that spanned multiple galaxies. He had fought in battles that destroyed moons and decimated fleets. He knew strength when he saw it, and yet this human was something different. Something unexpected. Something that forced him to reconsider everything he thought he knew about humans. "You have potential," he whispered almost reverently, his voice low enough that only he could hear it. "Potential beyond what anyone has believed possible." The advisors looked at him, puzzled. "General? You mean the human cadet?" one of them asked, voice hesitant. "Are you suggesting he is capable?" Talon did not answer immediately. He turned back to the display, watching Evan complete the exercise with calm precision. He could see the sweat on the cadet's brow, the slight trickle of blood from the earlier strike, yet Evan's movements were flawless. Every step spoke of preparation, focus, and determination. Every action said, "I will not break. I will not fail. I will endure." "It is not just capability," Talon finally said, his voice deep and measured. It is spirit. It is resilience. It is the mind that remains steady when the body is struck, when the odds are against it. This human, he is not weak. He is something more. The council murmured again, but this time their words were cautious, respectful. Even they could sense the weight in Talon's declaration. The alien general, known for his strictness and his sharp judgment, was acknowledging that a human possessed strength beyond expectation. Talon leaned back slightly, his massive frame casting a shadow over the console. He thought of the battlefield, of strategy and skill, and realized something unsettling. The arena was silent except for the hum of the energy shields surrounding the floor. Cadets and instructors watched from the sidelines, their eyes wide and breath held, knowing something extraordinary was about to unfold. Talon's shadow stretched across the metallic floor, his forearms twitching with anticipation. The alien general moved with a predator's grace, each step deliberate, each muscle coiled like a spring ready to snap. Evan stood opposite him, his chest rising and falling steadily. He had trained for this moment, but training could not fully prepare anyone for the raw power of an alien general. His uniform was slightly torn from the earlier strike, and a faint line of blood ran along his lip, but his eyes were clear, focused, unafraid. He knew that fear would be the one thing Talon could exploit, and he refused to give it. Talon's voice echoed across the arena. "You have endured my strength. Now we will see how far your limits truly reach, human." Evan nodded, keeping his stance firm. "I am ready." With a sudden burst of movement, Talon struck. One of his massive arms arced toward Evan's head with blinding speed, followed almost simultaneously by another sweeping blow aimed at his midsection. The ground trembled slightly under the force, and the air seemed to ripple as though reality itself was bending under Talon's power. Evan barely moved. He sidestepped the first strike, ducked under the second and rolled forward, his body low to the floor. His reflexes were razor-sharp, honed from months of grueling training. Every muscle, every sense worked in harmony. He moved not just with speed but with strategy, calculating Talon's timing, anticipating the trajectory of each limb, and using the momentum to his advantage. The crowd gasped, cadets whispering in astonishment. "He's dodging him," one exclaimed. "How is he still alive?" another asked. The instructors leaned forward, some frowning, others nodding with a mix of respect and disbelief. Talon's eyes narrowed. He had fought opponents faster and stronger than Evan, but there was something different about this human. His movements were not purely reactive. They were intelligent, precise, and unpredictable. He did not rely solely on speed or strength. He used his mind. And in that moment, Talon realized that his opponent was not just surviving, he was learning, adapting, and using ingenuity to stay ahead. Evan sprang to his feet, circling Talon carefully. He knew he could not match raw power, but he could exploit openings. Talon's strikes, though devastatingly fast, left tiny gaps, slight moments where Evan could counter or reposition. He used these moments skillfully, ducking under an arm, leaping over a sweep, and delivering precise strikes at the general's exposed sides. Each strike was meant to test, not harm, but it sent a clear message. Humans could think under pressure and they could fight back intelligently. The duel escalated. Talon's movements became faster, his strikes more precise. His massive arms whipped through the air, aiming to overwhelm Evan with sheer power. Yet Evan responded with calculated movements, his feet gliding across the arena floor, his body twisting and turning, always one step ahead. He feinted, dodged, and countered, using his size and speed to his advantage. Every move highlighted human resilience and courage. Talon's tail, long and strong, lashed toward Evan, aiming to sweep him off his feet. Evan leapt just in time, landing nimbly and rolling forward. He could feel the shockwave from the tail's impact ripple through the arena, rattling the metallic floor, yet he remained steady. Each strike from Talon was more powerful than the last, yet Evan adapted, adjusting his stance, shifting his weight, and predicting the next movement. The cadets whispered among themselves, their awe growing with each passing moment. They had trained for years, yet they had never seen a human move with such speed, intelligence, and bravery. Evan was proving that human skill was not limited by size or strength. It was amplified by creativity, courage, and the will to survive. Talon paused briefly, his massive chest rising and falling as he assessed the human. He flexed his arms, testing the limits of Evan's endurance. Then, in a sudden motion, he struck again, this time aiming a combined assault at Evan's upper body from two directions at once. Evan's mind raced. He could not simply dodge, he needed to outthink the general. He used a quick spin to evade one strike while simultaneously dropping low to avoid the other, then pushed off the ground and flipped backward, landing gracefully on his feet. A low murmur ran through the spectators. They had never seen such agility. They had never seen a human stand against a being so overwhelmingly powerful and remain unbroken. Talon's gaze sharpened. He had underestimated the cadet's ability to adapt, to think under pressure, and to act decisively. Each counter, each dodge, each feint told him that humans were more than he had believed. They were clever, resourceful, and unyielding. Evan meanwhile felt the burn in his muscles and the ache from earlier blows, but he blocked it out. Pain was a tool, he reminded himself. Awareness and focus were stronger. He studied Talon's rhythm, noticing subtle patterns in the alien's movements. A slight delay before the third strike, a hint of overextension when switching directions, a tendency to favor one arm for defense. These small observations were his advantage, and he used them with precision. He darted forward, landing a light strike at Talon's midsection, not to harm, but to demonstrate that he could reach the general. Talon's black eyes widened slightly in surprise. He had expected strength, endurance, perhaps even resilience, but this human had something else entirely: ingenuity. Each move Evan made was clever, calculated, and effective. The duel continued for what felt like an eternity to the spectators. Talon struck again and again, each blow faster and more powerful, yet Evan remained elusive. His footwork, timing, and anticipation allowed him to avoid direct hits, and his counters kept Talon from gaining complete control. He flowed like water around a boulder, moving with purpose, speed, and strategy, using every ounce of skill he had learned during countless hours of training. The arena was quiet, save for the faint hum of the energy shields and the occasional metallic clank as the floor vibrated under the presence of the combatants. Talon's chest rose and fell rapidly, the four massive arms twitching in exhaustion and disbelief. Each movement of the alien general, normally precise and terrifying, now carried hesitation. He had fought countless battles, led thousands of warriors, and faced foes who would have destroyed planets, yet nothing had prepared him for the human cadet before him. Evan stood firm, chest heaving, arms raised in readiness. Sweat ran down his face, and a thin trickle of blood from a graze above his eyebrow stained the side of his uniform. Yet he did not falter. His eyes remained locked on Talon's, steady and calm, a mirror of the quiet courage that had carried him this far. Every step, every breath, every movement had been deliberate, calculated, and courageous. Evan was not just surviving, he was teaching. Talon paused mid-attack, halting an assault that would have shattered most opponents. His massive limbs hung in the air for a moment, fingers flexing and claws tapping against the metal floor. The strike he had intended to end the duel was now unnecessary. His mind raced, struggling to reconcile the overwhelming power he possessed with the fact that a human had not only survived but had bested him in cleverness, adaptability, and resolve. For the first time in decades, Talon felt doubt, not in himself but in his perception of humans. He realized something profound. Evan wasn't just fighting for personal honor or to prove himself as a cadet. No, the human carried something larger, something greater. Every dodge, every counter, every calculated movement carried the weight of a species, the quiet, unyielding heart of humanity itself. Talon understood in that instant that he was facing not a single cadet, but the embodiment of a human spirit that refused to bow under oppression or overwhelming force. The general's four arms lowered slowly, the twitching that had accompanied his attacks ceasing almost entirely. His massive chest heaved and his black eyes, sharp and piercing, now shone with a flicker of something unfamiliar: humility. He had always been a conqueror, a general who demanded obedience and respect. Yet here, in the presence of a small human, he felt compelled to recognize the truth he had long ignored. Humans were resilient, intelligent, and courageous in ways that even the galaxy's fiercest warriors often failed to grasp. He moved carefully, each step deliberate, until he reached a position before Evan. For a long moment, neither spoke. The cadets on the sidelines held their breath, unsure if Talon would resume the attack or end the duel. The tension was thick, as if the arena itself waited for the next move of the alien general. Then slowly Talon dropped to one knee. The motion was deliberate, almost ceremonious. His four arms rested on the ground, claws splayed, head bowed. The alien had never lowered himself before a human, or any opponent for that matter. A low murmur ran through the crowd, a mix of awe and disbelief. I was wrong, Talon said, his voice low, hesitant, almost trembling. Forgive me, human. The words echoed through the arena, carrying a weight that stunned everyone present. It was not merely an apology, it was a recognition of strength, a concession of humility, and a bridge across species that had long regarded humans as inferior. Talon's eyes, black and unyielding for decades, now held something entirely new: respect. Evan's heart pounded, but he remained calm. He understood the significance of this moment. The general's gesture was monumental, a recognition that transcended individual pride. It was a rare acknowledgement that humans, small and often underestimated, could stand with courage equal to, or even surpassing, the galaxy's fiercest warriors. Evan extended a hand slowly, deliberately, offering it to Talon. The gesture was simple yet profound. It was more than a hand extended in friendship. It was a symbol of mutual understanding, a silent acknowledgement that respect and courage could bridge worlds. Talon hesitated briefly, then reached forward, his massive clawed hand meeting Evan's. The contact was careful, deliberate, and heavy with meaning. The strength of the alien was overwhelming, yet Evan did not falter. The gesture was a shared acknowledgement of skill, determination, and the recognition that courage, not size or power, defined true strength. Around them the cadets whispered excitedly. Some stood, some leaned forward, all eyes glued to the pair. They had never witnessed such a moment in the academy, a human not only surviving against a being of incredible strength but earning the respect of that being in full display. The murmur spread quickly. "He did it," one cadet said. "The human did it," another whispered. Talon's black eyes studied Evan closely. There was a strange mixture of awe and contemplation in his gaze. The general had long believed in strength as a measure of worth, in power as the ultimate truth of existence. Yet here was a human cadet, small in comparison, who had demonstrated that intelligence, courage, and determination could match or even surpass brute strength. It was a revelation that unsettled him, humbled him, and forced him to reconsider everything he thought he knew. Evan's own breathing was steady. He did not boast or celebrate. He understood that humility was as important as courage. The moment was not about personal triumph but about proving what humans could achieve when they refused to break. His calm gaze met Talon's, silent but eloquent. Strength is not always measured by power. Courage is measured by will. For several long moments, the two remained there, one kneeling in humility, the other standing in quiet assurance. Time seemed to stretch. The observers could feel the weight of the moment. The news of Evan's duel with General Talon spread quickly through the academy, moving like wildfire across the metallic corridors and observation towers. Cadets who had been skeptical, even fearful of human abilities, now whispered in awe and admiration. Every corner of the training grounds carried the story. A small human cadet had faced one of the galaxy's most feared generals and had not only survived but had earned the respect of the alien warrior. Instructors who had witnessed countless duels and drills stared in disbelief, replaying the moments in their minds. "He didn't just survive," one said, shaking her head. "He outsmarted the general. He moved with calm, control, and courage. He taught us something." Others nodded quietly, recognizing that Evan's display of intelligence and skill had changed their understanding of what humans were capable of. Word spread beyond the academy, traveling through alien fleets, starships, and outposts. Reports arrived in command centers across the galaxy. A human cadet named Evan has bested General Talon in the arena. The human demonstrated courage, ingenuity, and calm under attack. At first, some officers dismissed it as exaggeration or propaganda. But further reports, replays, and testimonies confirmed the story. Humans, once seen as fragile, unpredictable, or weak, were being reconsidered. Even Talon's own fleet whispered the news among themselves. The general, who had spent decades enforcing fear and dominance, now faced a new reality. A human cadet had challenged him in mind, spirit, and courage, and had emerged not broken but victorious in respect. Talon's own officers, who had once scoffed at the humans, now regarded them with cautious interest. Back at the academy, Evan continued his training, though now the atmosphere around him had shifted. Cadets who had once doubted him now approached cautiously, eager to observe, to learn, or to simply stand near the human who had changed the perception of an entire species. Some asked him questions about his techniques, while others simply watched as he moved with precision, speed, and calm intelligence. Evan answered politely, never boasting, never claiming superiority. He understood that true strength did not lie in arrogance but in courage, humility, and persistence. Talon, for his part, had returned to the academy as well, but not as an enemy, not as a conqueror. He trained alongside Evan, observing the cadet's movements and studying his approach to strategy and combat. The alien general, who had relied on sheer power and intimidation for decades, found himself learning from a human. He marveled at the calm intelligence, the adaptability, and the courage that allowed Evan to stand firm against impossible odds. Together they trained in the arena. Talon would demonstrate attacks, and Evan would counter, deflect, and evade, teaching the alien to think differently, to anticipate, to plan, to calculate with patience rather than only raw strength. Talon's respect deepened, not only for Evan as an individual but for humanity as a whole. The general began to realize that humans had potential far beyond what had ever been acknowledged. Across the galaxy, other species began to take notice. Where humans had once been underestimated, dismissed, or ignored, they were now viewed with caution and respect. News of Evan's performance spread to diplomatic channels, fleet command centers, and even distant colonies. Aliens who had previously scoffed at human resolve began to rethink their assumptions. Humans were clever, adaptable, resilient, and brave. They could endure, they could learn, and they could inspire. Back at the academy, instructors introduced new exercises inspired by Evan's approach. They emphasized observation, adaptability, and calm under pressure, teaching cadets to think creatively rather than rely solely on strength. Evan's example became a standard, a demonstration of how humans could combine courage, intelligence, and spirit to overcome challenges far beyond expectations. Talon often watched from the sidelines, silently guiding students as they attempted to emulate Evan's calm focus. He offered advice, sometimes correcting technique, sometimes praising initiative. In the process, he came to understand that humans were not simply physically resilient. They possessed a unique blend of intelligence, courage, and creativity that even the most disciplined alien warriors could learn from. Evan, for his part, remained humble. He did not seek fame or recognition. His goal was simple: to prove what humans could do when they refused to break under pressure, and to encourage others to believe in their own potential. He knew that courage was contagious, and that even one act of calm defiance could inspire countless others to rise to challenges they had once thought impossible. As the weeks passed, Evan's reputation grew. Cadets who had once doubted themselves now found confidence in his example. Humans in other fleets, hearing the stories, began to train harder, knowing that the galaxy was watching, and that their actions could shift perceptions. The spark of courage that Evan had ignited spread, reminding everyone that humanity's strength lay not only in numbers or weapons but in intelligence, perseverance, and unyielding will. Talon continued to work alongside Evan, and their partnership became an example for others. The alien general, once a figure of fear and dominance, now showed a different kind of leadership, one that valued courage, learning, and respect. Together, they demonstrated that strength could be measured in more ways than one, and that even the smallest human could teach lessons to the greatest warrior in the galaxy. Somewhere far beyond the academy, across distant stars and alien worlds, the story of Evan's courage reached ears that had never considered the human species significant. Humans were no longer underestimated, they were respected. Fleet commanders, diplomats, and warriors began to acknowledge their cleverness, resilience, and bravery. And somewhere in the deep reaches of space, humanity's reputation grew like a constellation, shining brightly among the stars, impossible to ignore. In the arena, Evan trained quietly, methodical, and calm, while Talon observed. Each movement of the cadet inspired the next generation of students, and each lesson learned by the general spread throughout the alien fleets. Together, they had not only trained warriors but had reshaped perception. Humanity, once dismissed, was now seen as a force of intelligence, courage, and adaptability. Even in the quiet moments as the sun, or what passed for a sun in this part of the galaxy, glinted off the metal floors, the ripple of Evan's impact could be felt. Cadets practiced harder, aliens reconsidered old prejudices, and humans carried a quiet pride, knowing that they were no longer dismissed as weak or fragile. A single cadet had changed minds and inspired countless others. And somewhere among the stars, on distant worlds far from the academy and the fleets, the lights of Nova Prime shone brightly. They were a reminder that humanity's courage could illuminate even the darkest reaches of space. Evan's name became a symbol of hope, of resilience, of the unyielding spirit that defined humans. The story of one cadet, standing tall against impossible odds, would be told and retold across galaxies, reminding all who listened that bravery and ingenuity were not bound by size, species, or expectation. For Talon, watching the cadets train under Evan's guidance, the lesson was clear. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for too long. Intelligence, courage, and determination could challenge even the mightiest, and perhaps, in the years to come, humans would prove that they could not only survive among the stars, they could thrive, shine, and inspire all who crossed their path. Evan, quiet and composed, continued to train. He knew the story was not about himself alone. It was about humanity as a whole. Each movement, each exercise, each moment of calm under pressure reinforced the message. Humans were clever, resilient, brave, and capable of facing challenges far beyond their size or appearance. And as the stars stretched endlessly overhead, Evan's courage and determination radiated across the galaxy. Humanity's light, once overlooked, now burned brightly, a symbol of hope, courage, and the unyielding power of the human spirit.